Nintendo Switch Sports has one glaring problem that nobody is talking about. To find out what this problem is, we need to first take a look back at the history of Wii Sports games and why the franchise is so successful. When Wii Sports was released in 2006, it gained popularity for three main reasons. The first is that it was a pack-in title for the Nintendo Wii. Everyone who had a Wii had Wii Sports, so the game received a lot of exposure. Even my gym teachers from elementary school purchased Nintendo Wiis so we could play Wii Baseball during our baseball unit. However, this exposure would mean nothing if the game weren't as accessible as it was. The gameplay was so simple that anyone could pick up a Wii remote and know what to do. Want to hit the tennis ball? Swing your racket. Want to hit the baseball? Swing your baseball bat. Want to box against Matt? Use your fist to punch. Since the Wii remote is used to emulate real-life actions, it's extremely easy to learn the controls of every game. It was so easy that even your grandmother could play with you on family game night.
Oh darling, this is such a great game.
Finally, Wii Sports was charming enough that both casual and hardcore gamers alike can look back fondly on Wii Sports. With an accessible, charming, and fun game to pilot their new console, Nintendo racked in cash during the Wii era. Wii Sports was so successful, in fact, that they decided to make an even bigger and better game with brand new sports and upgraded motion controls. Wii Sports Resorts had the same charm and accessibility as the original game, but also gained a lot of exposure because of the popularity of Wii Sports, and the fact that it often came packed in with a Wii Motion Plus. However, people weren't just going to buy the same game again. Wii Sports Resorts has over double the amount of games that the original entry had, and they are all brand new games as well. Needless to say, this game sold excellent as well. Then, Nintendo got cocky. They thought that their precious Nintendo Wii was so successful that people would buy anything with Wii in the title. And so they released the Wii U, and the dark era of Nintendo began. This dark era contained a Wii Sports game that is often overlooked, and for a good reason. Wii Sports Club released on the Wii U in 2014 with the same 5 sports as the original game, and the only real difference being the inclusion of online play. While an online mode is nice to have in every game, it's like Nintendo forgot why people liked Wii Sports in the first place. The charm was there, and so was the accessibility, but with no new modes like in Resorts, and the fact that the casual audience doesn't care much for fancy additions like online play, the game was doomed from the start. The lack of an appeal to the casual market caused the game to flop and left fans wondering how Wii Sports Resorts was followed up with a downgrade in every sense of the imagination. But we all make mistakes here and there. Nintendo recovered from their dark age and is following it up with their greatest console ever, the Nintendo Switch. Every first-party game on this console feels like the pinnacle of its series, from Breath of the Wild to Mario Odyssey to Smash Ultimate to Kirby and the Forgotten Land and so on. So surely if Nintendo were to release a new Wii Sports game, they would learn from the mistakes of their past and make a greater casual game than ever before, right? Well, Nintendo launched the Nintendo Switch with a casual game, but it wasn't exactly what we were expecting. 1-2 Switch was an interesting concept on paper, but lacked much of what made the casual Wii Sports games of the past so interesting. To start, 1-2 Switch lacked accessibility. It's not a pack-in game, nor is it particularly easy to purchase, sitting at a hefty $50 price point. Not only that, the game seemed very corporate, lacking a lot of the charm that we all love from the Wii Sports series. But Nintendo didn't give up. They tried their hand at another casual game that could make use of the Switch's hardware, that being Nintendo Labo. This game had a little more charm, however, was once again not accessible at all. In fact, it's the most expensive game to purchase on the Nintendo Switch. Not only that, but the game isn't very easy to understand, nor is it very replayable, like baseball and basketball were. They took one step forward once again by releasing a very solid casual game, that being Ring Fit. The game is easier to understand than Labo and has much more charm than 1-2 Switch, but once again comes at a hefty price tag, which is holding it back from being as big of a success as the sports series was. Ring Fit Adventure sold surprisingly well, and it seems like Nintendo wants to continue riding this wave of casual games. Not only did they release a port of Miitopia from the 3DS, they also announced a brand new entry in the Wii Sports series, Nintendo Switch Sports. After failing so many times to appeal to the casual audience with a game that utilizes the Switch's hardware, you would think that Nintendo would know what to do by now. All they needed to do was to make a charming game with plenty of new modes to enjoy like in the first two games. Instead, we got something much different. A corporate entry that neglects the charm of the Mii's and slaps the Wii Sports title on the box for the sake of making more money. Even if the game is lacking that same charm we all loved, surely it would introduce new modes at the very least, right? Wrong. What we got instead was 3 new modes. Count them, 3. Actually 2.5, since one of the new games is badminton, which is basically just tennis with a little bit of spice. Sorry, badminton fans. Well, I guess 2.5 new modes isn't so bad. After all, there are only so many sports in the world. As long as they bring back all the sports from the previous games, there's plenty of content to enjoy. Oh wait, that's right. They brought back almost none of the 17 previous sports. They brought back 3 to be exact. Suddenly, Switch Sports is starting to look a heck of a lot like Wii Sports Club, which had hardly any new content and sold poorly as a result. Except, Club had charm at the very least. None of that was here. So all we are really getting are 2 new modes, and that's it. Nintendo, you do realize that you introduced 12 new sports in Wii Sports Resorts, a sequel that released 13 years ago on an inferior console. Do you seriously expect the casuals to want to spend more money on this series for half of the content previously offered to them at a cheaper price and on a more accessible console? I'm not really sure who you're trying to appeal to here, Nintendo. It seems like you're desperately trying to milk the series as much as possible, instead of investing your resources into making games that people will genuinely enjoy, which would make the sports series more money in the long run. I could go on, but I already complained enough about why Nintendo Switch Sports is doomed for failure, and why Wii Sports Resorts was the perfect sequel in this video. Top 10 sports we want back in Nintendo Switch Sports. The link is in the description. Subscribe to Game Domain to keep up to date with our content, and until next time, this has been Danny with Game Domain. I'll see you in the next video.